What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Premier League Across the Podcast. I'm your host, Fu, and as always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Josh and Joey. It was a really good weekend of Premier League action, some massive games on, so we'll just dive straight into it. First game of the weekend, the Saturday kickoff, was Man United v Everton, and that game ended 1-1. Josh, do you want to give your thoughts on that one, mate?
Yeah, I mean, the headline's definitely Ronaldo benching and United continuing to drop points. But impressive performance from Everton. Townsend's actually on a flyer. Who would have thought? Andrews Townsend out of nowhere is actually off to a brilliant start in 2021 for Everton. But they've a good match. United, in my opinion, don't know how to defend currently. They can't stop the counter goal. It looks like every team will have chances on the counter against them. And once again, the offense is lacking a little bit.
Yeah, I think that comes down to the defensive woes. When your two DMs that are going to help your defence out are Fred and McTominay, I think I can speak for every fan. It doesn't really give much confidence to a supporter, does it? Looking at the lineup, like you said, Ronaldo benched at the end of the game. You know, he showed what he thought of that. He stormed off and looked so frustrated. So that puts a lot of pressure on Ollie, really, doesn't it, boys? To maybe start him again. And that shows that Ronaldo's there to win and not to fuck about, really.
Yeah, it's it's another odd team selection by Ole, and it only makes the pressure on himself worse. And obviously, I mean, I think this is the first time Martial has started in a maybe he started against us in the League Cup. I forget, to be honest. But I guess he did get a goal. To be honest, I didn't see the goal, but it just, like, looking now, it looks like an odd team selection. Obviously, like you said, the DMs just don't help in terms of progressive passing and carrying the ball. And neither are they. They weren't there either to be found in transition, covering the central defenders, and fullbacks are pushing higher up the pitch. So it's just a hard one to figure out with United right now. And it looks like the only way they're winning games right now is just like in moments. Like tactically, like they don't have this like footballing identity that you see with City and Liverpool, but they just win it because they're more talented than other teams in moments, and they kind of get away with maybe some scrubby defending and De Gea's good goalkeeping this year.
Yeah, I mean, they've been woeful at home. They've won 2 of their last 7 home fixtures, and they just seem to be getting outplayed. And the biggest stadium in the Premier League, you figure, with Ronaldo, and they need to, you think they'd be better at home than away. That's what's so surprising. But obviously away, they've been unbeaten for so long. But, I mean, you figure they'll probably lose soon away, just how they're playing currently. But fair play to Everton. I think this is their second best start to the Premier League season. So Benitez looks like he really has some idea of how they're going to play. And he's gotten Damari Gray and Andrews Townsend, Abdoulaye Doucouré. I mean, they're playing very solid. They were unlucky not to win. They had an 88th minute offside goal. I mean, it was definitely offside, Mina, but I mean, if Davies, he easily could have shot that low.
I don't know why he didn't.
Probably would have
don't
nicked
know
that
why
game.
He didn't.
But they're United lucky. I mean, that's not something that they'll be too happy about, and they're certainly mounting.
Yeah, and I mean as well, just
pressure there, especially because of how the other top 6 clubs are playing.
And just to rub salt in the wound on that result, they did get to see the famous C celebration, but obviously it wasn't from their star man Ronaldo. It was from the guy Andros Townsend. But yeah, worrying signs.
Comedy.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with what Joey said as well about them winning it in moments. I mean, even if you look to their Champions League game, that they were pretty poor in that. Lucky, in my opinion, to take away the 3 points.
Yeah, very lucky.
It was just that moment, that guy again, number 7 for them, doing what he does and winning the game. But how long can Ollie, rely on the big players and the star players to win it? And at what point does he get the team to actually play as a team and not just rely on Bruno or Ronaldo or somebody to, pull them out of the mud, or De Gea with his save? So yeah, something needs to change there soon. And after the game as well, it showed how frustrated United fans are. Ollie out was trending. So we'll see how much longer he lasts at the club and if they can pick up results. But speaking about a team that did get their first result this season, I think if you were to put a grand on any game to finish 0-0, you'd probably have said Burnley, Norwich. So well done to Norwich, I suppose, as they finally got a point. They have been absolutely dog shit all season. But yeah, I mean, they'll be delighted with that. I think that if they didn't get a point there and they maybe lost the next one, then Farke's job would probably be on the line. I think that would be safe to say.
Yeah, but I mean, with the ambitions of Norwich, like, what's the like? There's no precedent for success in the Premier League. So when are they gonna? And they know that like Farke is likely to take them down and then probably rebuild a good side within the next like 2 or 3 years. So I just don't see that much heat on him or like the players, to be honest. And obviously I know the players, like, by their own ambition, like, want to stay up, but that's why I said at the beginning of the year in our predictions, I think they genuinely could contest for like least accumulated points over the course of the season, because it's just like a club that you just don't think like they're targeting to stay up, like seriously, as much as like what they say or what they, I don't know, like their, I guess, PR like comes out with, but just on the field, you just never really see that in their play style.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it's like, okay, you're getting a point and like it's better than Sheffield did last year or whatever when they went all those matches without getting a point. Those are the matches either of those teams, not just Norwich, either of those teams needs to win. You need to pick up 3 points against the relegation rivals, against the easier sides in the Premier League, and like 3 points for Burnley through 7 is not going to cut it. 1 point for Norwich through 7 is certainly not going to cut it. Obviously, it's a slight bit of positive for Norwich, but you gotta push on, especially like attacking and getting goals. I mean, they are going to struggle big time to get goals this year.
I mean, to be fair, real quick, just I guess echoing what Josh was saying, like Burnley need those points. They're only on 3 points this year. Like the Norwich win that match, they're ahead of Burnley. Like, and like it is, Norwich still are in with a shout to stay up, just because Southampton have 4, Burnley and Newcastle sitting there on 3. So I mean, they should have a very positive attitude and be thinking to themselves, we have everything to play for still, and any point we can nick. Obviously, we want to get 3, like the full 3 points in those 6 pointers like they just played, but they should have a positive attitude and be thinking, we can stay up and hopefully they play more positively, I guess, and do get some goals.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, looking at Norwich's point of view, do you not feel like they shouldn't be so content with, all right, we'll get relegated and go back up, and Farke's a good manager, he's got us up? Because when you look at the other teams that have come up from the Championship recently, obviously, Leeds managed to stay up, and then Watford are doing really well. Brentford are doing brilliantly. Like they're going at teams, they're playing good football with, as you said, when you watch Norwich, it doesn't look like there's any belief on the pitch for them at all. And, Daniel Farke might be a legend there or whatever. They might really love him. But at what point does 2 goals scored, 16 goals conceded? At what point do you say, right, something has to change here? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're in the Premier League now. You can't just be happy with losing.
Yeah.
I
guess it starts with the board. Go on, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, just from the business perspective, like obviously you're getting into the Premier League, which is bringing in tons of money, but I feel like you're kind of on a knife's edge if you're bringing all that revenue in 1 year and then losing all of it and not having it the next year. And I think that's just a disaster for player contracts, sponsorships and all that stuff if you can't guarantee that kind of stuff. So obviously it worked for them, I will say, relative to the last 10 years. It's not like the club's struggling and they've been, upper Championship, lower Premier League consistently. But like, is that a really good foundation to grow on? It's better than being bottom of the Championship, there's no question, but it's not, it doesn't seem to be like they are going to be able to build to be even a lower mid-level Premier League team.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I agree. Speaking of managers getting sacked then, I mean, it was somewhat shocking, but then, you remember Watford's record and then you're like, actually, no, it's not that shocking.
You just remember the history of the club too.
Yeah, mate. I really don't know what they were doing so early on the season, sacking him, like right before an international break as well. Some of the players will be going away. So the new manager coming in, who I think it's been confirmed as Ranieri. Their next game coming up as well is Liverpool. Maybe they should have at least given him a chance to play that. He'd done really well for them. Like I said, got them back to the Prem. They've been playing some decent football. Although they lost to Leeds, I just think that was a harsh sacking. That, even though it is Watford and they've had God knows how many managers over the last 8-9 years, that just for me was a surprise, lads. I don't know what you reckon.
Yeah, I think Xisco is like, I think he was well liked within the camp. I don't know if either you guys or I'm sure some of the listeners have watched like Ben Foster's like Cycling GK, his YouTube channel. He like talks a lot about how like the team camp and spirit has been good under Xisco Disco is what he calls it. But so it was kind of surprising, and they're not off to a bad start. And like you can kind of see like they have an identity. They have a good amount of attacking options, between Josh King, the Dennis started the year hot. Obviously, Ismail Assar is kind of their talisman. I think they lost. They lose Will Hughes to Palace. Did he go to Palace? I think he did, and he was really good in the championship for them last year. So maybe I guess it's been more of a struggle in the midfield for them, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think he was doing a bad job, enough to warrant a firing. So, but that's the history of Watford in the last couple of years. They just fire these managers like when you don't expect them to.
Yeah, I mean, I will say like it's not like they've been unbelievable, but 7 points like result wise is fine. But they've really lacked some attacking threat.
Yeah, they have.
Maybe they're trying to be a little bit ahead of the curve by firing this early. Ranieri it's an exciting hire. I mean, obviously past experience with Leicester and Chelsea, but when he was at Fulham, I mean, they weren't that great. So
wasn't he there for like all of a couple months too?
Yeah, and they got relegated that season. So yeah, I'm not sure I don't know. I would caution. I don't like giving managers the curtain that early on in the season, especially just you got to see some time. And when you're playing all right. But, I think they're just trying to be a little bit ahead of the curve and make sure they don't get relegated this season.
Yeah. Just quickly, a question for you guys. They must have wanted Ranieri, right? Like, if they knew they were going to fire Xisco, he must have been the one they want, like, right? I mean, you don't fire a manager if you don't, this early, especially if you don't know who you're going to go get, like, or have a pre-agreement with. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd say so. Just because as well, how quick the news broke that he was the new manager. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't even like a day later. I think it was literally like the same day Fabrizio started tweeting, it looks like he's next in line, whereas normally a manager sacked and then there's a few days of rumours, this guy's linked and this guy's linked. So I think you're definitely right there. The fact that it was so instant was like as if the owners were thinking, right, if we lose today against Leeds, which obviously they did, well done to Leeds getting 3 points, then they were like, this is our plan B, we sack him. But if he wins Leeds or maybe gets a point out of Leeds, we postpone it a bit. I don't know if maybe the Leeds game would have changed anything. But yeah, I do definitely agree that it seems like that was already in the pipeline for them, especially because it was announced so quick.
They have to have the ambition to win the title, right? If they're getting Ranieri.
Yeah, true, mate, true.
Tinkerman.
Speaking of Ranieri and winning the title, then that'll move us on to Super Sunday. And, there was 4 good games there, to be fair. It kicked off with Palace 2-2 against Leicester. Now, obviously, you boys know I was at the game, so I wasn't able to really watch any of these matches. But did any of you boys manage to pick that up? How did it go? Because I know early season, Joey said he'll be keeping an eye on Vieira. And to be fair to Palace, mate, they're doing well. They're getting some results.
Yeah, he's really been he's proven me wrong so far, at least, and they look much more they actually scare you, whereas past Palace teams, you would think they might like nick a goal on you and be good defensively and just kind of soak and absorb everything up and maybe win 1-0 or 2-1. And This, Palace team, obviously Eze isn't even back, but between Zaha, Edouard, Benteke, IU hasn't played that well lately, but Michael Lise, I think that's how you say his name, came off the bench, and I think he had a goal and an assist, and he looked really good because it was all Leicester in the first half. And just from a Leicester standpoint, quickly, I didn't watch the whole match, but I saw bits and bobs as a switching back and forth from watching West Ham as well. But I think Iheanacho definitely helped Leicester going forward. I mean, they clearly have a lot more chances, and obviously have already got a goal. And Iheanacho got one himself too. So I think he's going to stay in the starting lineup. I would be very surprised if he doesn't moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Palace play to them. They're a legitimate side this season. I think praising him for what he got out of the squad, but they look like a decent side. Leicester definitely had it was an individual mistake from Anderson that led to the first goal, but Leicester just kind of pressed them and won the ball high up with like Tielemans. He's always there every time the ball gets turned over, or like it's kind of like the first line of defense for Leicester, and he always nicking the ball. But when he doesn't get the ball, or indeed, with a little bit of press, they're super open at the back, and that just kind of led to the comeback. And I think they really, I'm not sure sold on Vestergaard. There's probably a bit of a reason that Southampton are getting rid of him. It was only 15 million or whatever, but I think Leicester just kind of hurt a little bit by not having Evans and Fofana still. So they're just a bit defensive liable. They've had a pretty disappointing start to the season. I fully expect them to turn it around with the squad they have, but you can't be up 2-0 at halftime and then draw a match. So they're going to have to really kick it into gear.
Yeah, we spoke on Leicester last episode a bit and touched on, how disappointing they'll be. Again, same situation, really. It was the defensive problem. Vardy scored again. Iheanacho obviously scored, and he, towards the end of last season, was seeming like their main goal scorer, as I think Vardy went on quite a cold streak. But yeah, something like you said, Vestergaard just doesn't give the same confidence as the others do at defence. So hopefully they can, turn it around and we'll see the Leicester we're used to. Or maybe their stint at being one of the top 6 teams might come to an end this season. Who knows? Because, it is a very competitive league, and a team that we'd be hoping to break into that top 6 and stay there will be Tottenham. Josh, who managed to get back to winning ways, obviously beating Villa 2-1. I bet your eyes were, firmly on that one. So do you want to tell us how it went?
Yeah, that was a huge sigh of relief for me, just because we got a kind of performance out of Spurs that I figured we could have in us, but we just looked like a more legitimate side, like posing tons of attacking threat. I thought we really should have put the game away way earlier than it was. But we were just, it was a hard fought match the inside. At the end of the day, like, we just had we had too many chances, and like we have an incredible attacking. Between Kane and Son, Kane is unlucky not to get a goal. He had a brilliant strike from about 10 yards inside Villa's half. We had a quick free kick that the ball was like rolling and stopped, and he was running behind it and just had a shot on goal. And Martinez had a really good save, honestly, to palm it away. But we were just applying a lot of pressure and got some goals that came back, and then we created. Son was absolutely unbelievable. He's really, really taken charge of the team this year, and really, I think Dean Smith said, like, the difference was they just have a world-class player in Hunman's Son. I think that's what he said after the match, and like it was pretty evident he was just beating everyone and just creating chances, and had 2 assists. I know that the own goal never kind of ruins it, but he had a 2 assists, and or maybe just one. I forget if he passed to Højbjerg, but the second one was him. Højbjerg had a great match. And Villa, on Villa's side a bit, I think they try to stay in games. I think that's a bit of a goal of theirs. They try to not get blown out. When other teams are a little bit more dominant, they slow the game down a lot. It felt like their only attack was like a long throw-in. If they get any throw-in the attacking half, they just give it to Target. he wipes the ball off for about 10 seconds, and then he can throw it about 40 yards. And he just puts it in the box. And it honestly, it creates chances. Spurs did well enough to defend them and didn't there were times where, you barely win the first header, it's bouncing around and easily a Villa player could stab it home. But it's kind of interesting. They did that about 10 times in the match. But it kind of stops Villa from attacking on a counter, which they did score on. But yeah, Spurs will be delighted to play well and look like a more dominant attacking side and get the result.
Yeah, I think Villa will probably, they'll be disappointed that they maybe didn't get more out of the game. I'm not sure if they even deserve more, but I think as a whole, they'll be pretty happy with how the season's gone so far. I mean, they're on 10 points, positive goal difference so far, and sat in 10th. Obviously, losing Grealish, I'd say that's a win for them. Joey, I don't know what you think, but I think for Villa, being 10th place right now, they'll be happy with, I'd say.
Yeah, 10th place, and like Josh said, they slow it down a lot, and I didn't really watch that much. I saw again some pieces of the match, but it's interesting to see who's gonna really step in and be that creative force. I mean, I guess Bailey, we expect him to do that without Grealish, but obviously Grealish was so good at that, and his chemistry with other players in the team was just great. But they're kind of taking a little bit of a different shape, I guess, with Ings being the focal point of the attack. But speaking of someone who was really good for them last year, Ollie Watkins, it was good to see him back in the goals. I guess just from a neutral perspective, it's always fun to see strikers firing. And yeah, I mean, I think him and Ings could have a really good partnership going forward. And obviously Spurs were the better team on the day, I think, from what I gather. But we'll have to see how they fare out. I mean, I could see them playing really well and, maybe nicking 7th or 8th, but then you could also see them, kind of not having the best season and finishing mid-table, so lower down.
Yeah, and the TV commentators were talking a bit about how they're building a base to be a top 6 team and using the Grealish money to really challenge. But I don't know. I was kind of interesting. I'm not sure they're quite there, but they definitely have some form of foundation for that kind of project. And they definitely are bringing in talent and have a decent side. So it'll be exciting to see. I think they're a bit questionable. They have some upward mobility for sure.
Yeah, I think as well though, well done to them on not just spending the Grealish money on anything really. They brought in some quality players, like we said, Bailey, Danny Ings, a proven Premier League goal scorer, so they reinvested well. I'm sure they signed others that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But we'll move on then, Joey, to your team, who also play in the same colours as Villa. Losing to the mighty Brentford, who are showing, mate, they're in 7th place right now, 12 points. They're not in the Premier League, just to be here and get the T-shirt. They're here to compete and, battle against the bigger teams. And West Ham, again, similar to Spurs, they'll be wanting to get in that top 6 again, hopefully. But, I mean, what's the matter with you? He came on and he scored.
You talking about Vista?
Oh, is it Vista? I thought it was Wissa, so I did the little pun there.
Whichever one, yeah.
Wissa,
I didn't even catch that one. So I'm trying to pull up the stats right here. But yeah, this was a tough game for me to take as a West Ham fan. I mean, they were the much better side the first 15 minutes, 10 minutes of the match, and generally the first half hour, and then we kind of got back into it once they got their goal. And we were by far and away the much better side the last hour, and especially in the second half. I don't think they even had a shot in the second half until definitely not a shot on target in the second half until the 94th minute where they scored the winner. They had a shot on goal, Fabianski saved and pushed it away, and obviously they scored the rebound, but which was heartbreaking in and of itself. But kind of as a West Ham fan, I sort of expected them to score. Just felt like something was off that day. But yeah, I mean, I guess I give credit to Frank, that their manager, because he, it seems like he has the knowledge and the ability to coach the team to play differently in certain games, because they did a really good job of pressing Rice and Souček in the middle of the park, so he couldn't move the ball quickly. And when more this past game than any other, than the first 6 matches, did I think that we couldn't really like pass around teams and like dominate the flow. I mean, in the games that we've been in the ascendance, the periods of those matches, they did a really good job of taking Rice away and not letting him drive forward from, when our center backs were at midfield or just behind it. So, I mean, from a tactical standpoint, they were really good and they were coached very well. Just from how they actually played, they deserve all the plaudits for like the mentality, but they did have a lot of little like nippy fouls, and the ref Peter Banks I did not think was very good. I texted Josh after, I was a bit fuming. Just never thought he was like totally in control of the match. And there was a couple ones in the first half. Zonka, like this guy's a twat. Like he's made multiple fouls. He should have had been on a yellow in the first half, and then he finally gets one like the 80th minute, which could have changed how he defended certain situations. And to be honest, I don't know how we didn't score a second when we were like playing better in the second half. We should have had one before Bowen's goal, and Antonio/Socek should have had one again after that. So it was just frustrating, and they definitely were time wasting. But that's what a good side does. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, like, any team does that. Some of the, the bigger teams do that as well. So you can clearly tell like they're a seasoned team. They know what it takes to win in the Premier League. And, it's just, I want to say they got a little bit lucky, but we probably in match week 6, we weren't better than Leeds. And, Antonio scored one at the death against them. So that's the Premier League for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think brilliant from Brentford. It's just great to see a newly promoted side which had a bit of promise, like actually succeed, just like Leeds last year a bit. But I think it's how can they work to make this a more consistent thing for them? You're not always going to have matches where a last minute winner, but if, as you're saying, if they're playing well defensively and managing the game smartly, like it's just the recipe for success, I think, to be a good side and get results. You're not going to win a match, but I mean, you're drawing against Liverpool and then beating West Ham. I mean, that's 2 big results for them, and I think everyone would be absolutely delighted in West London.
Yeah, I know the pain of having Wissa come on the pitch and score against you. Obviously, he did that against Liverpool. But my one concern for Brentford is, the football they're playing at the minute, as much as, from a fan's point of view and a football fan's point of view to watch, it's great. You want to see your team get at another team. But how long can they keep it up for in the Premier League? Can they consistently week in, week out, keep that high pressure? Have they got enough rotation to be able to change players around and rest them to do that? Because
point.
We see it happen so often. It used to happen with Leeds all the time in the Championship, for example. They would be top of the Championship for months on months, playing Bielsa ball, high pressure, all this. And then the last few months of the season would come and, they drop into the playoff position. And if that didn't happen, if the drop-off didn't come, we'd have seen them in the Premier League probably a few seasons earlier. So is that potentially going to be a worry for Brentford? Will they run out of gas, after Christmas? Because we know that after this international break, and especially going towards December, fixtures are coming thick and fast, every 3-4 days. So be interesting to see how they deal with it at that time.
Quickly on that, I mean, that's like, this game was sort of a microcosm of what you're talking about, because like I said, they were all over us in the first half, especially the first half hour. And it seemed like they exerted a lot of their energy. And then in the second half, we totally just dominated play. And, they were lucky probably that we didn't score another goal. I mean, we were also just, our finishing wasn't there, I guess, on the day. So, that's football. I mean, that's sport. But we'll have to see, because of certain key players like Tony and Buemo, I think Onyeka is kind of one of those ones, and then a couple of the center backs as well, Jansen and Pinnock. They, if one of those guys go down, especially Tony or Mbuemo, what are they really gonna do? And where's their
Norgard as well, mate, is brilliant in midfield.
Yeah, he's decent as well. Yeah, that's a good shout. And then just quickly, last thing on West Ham, I think one thing that's hurting us right now is that, and like who scored and L'Equipe and however you say that, all the big, I guess, recognized, media outlets that give ratings, like match ratings for every game, or have given Socek poor ratings, this whole season basically, and he hasn't been that good. And it's kind of, tough to see, because he won Hammer of the Year last year. He scored 10 goals, right? He was like in and about a lot of like Premier League top 11 shouts for the team of the season, and he's just kind of looked like a shell of himself this year. And I think it's sort of because Rice is pushing farther up the pitch, and as good as like Rice does have that quality to like dictate play and make some great runs because he can carry the ball. He's shown actually the last couple matches that he's made some really good passes, that a couple for assists, one that probably should have been assists in this match. But it's kind of that relationship has sort of changed, and Socek sort of like doesn't know where to go now. It doesn't seem like he's getting into the box as much. So like we're like missing another guy who can finish with both his head and who's shown to be decent with scoring with his feet as well. So I think, I don't know, we'll have to just keep an eye on that going forward, because that relationship was so good for us last year, and it's starting to look like it's not exactly 100%. So that's just something, I guess, from a West Ham perspective that I'm going to look forward for the next couple matches, and I hope they kind of figure it out, because obviously I'd like to see Rice going forward, and he has quality, but at the same time, I want us to do what's best for the team as well. So, and I think he's like that as well. So we'll have to see how they change. But,
yeah. Time will tell, mate. Time will tell. On to the final game of the Sunday then, the big one, the one that, you're always guaranteed goals in. Liverpool v Man City 2-2. I was fortunate enough to be at that game, not as a fan, I was working it, but still got to watch the whole game, which was sick. However, saying that, the first half, I'm honest, I can say we were fucking lucky to get in at 0-0, mate, at first half. They were just all over us. Nothing was ticking for us. Hendo, just all. To be fair, our whole team weren't able to really turn and get away. They were on us straight away. Bernardo Silva in the first half, I thought, was brilliant. And yeah, it was just pure dominance from City. But then whatever Klopp said to them at half time, we came out, managed to make it 1-0. Pretty much all Salah's doing. Obviously, Mane had to finish, but the way Salah just dinked it over, I think it was Cancelo or whatever charging at him, and then to put the ball perfectly weighted to Mane and bury it. From that point then, I was like, all right, boys, let's go then. This is exciting now. 1-0. Salah's just pulled that off. Like, absolute baller. Phil Foden scores easily. Our team weren't just pressuring at all. I felt bad for Milner because they were targeting him so much. And Henderson just wasn't really giving him help. Curtis Jones isn't able to do what others can do in midfield as well. Don't get me wrong, Curtis Jones is a very talented baller, but I don't think he offers the same, defensive support that Thiago does when he's playing, or that Gini used to. But obviously, he's still only young, so maybe that will come into his game. But I don't know, Milner just seemed targeted, and I personally think Milner did really well. Obviously, debate maybe shouldn't have even been on the pitch, but Phil Foden scoring, coming to haunt Liverpool again like he always does. But I don't know, just our whole defence and midfield just looked like they couldn't be arsed. Like they just ran out of steam, and they weren't as high pressures anymore. They weren't getting back. And there was a point in the first half, I think it was, where Bernardo Silva danced around 4 players with absolute ease, around Hendo and and a couple of others. And I was just like, how are we letting him do that? Like, normally a player would smash him, or it would be cleared up. And I think Fabinho's been getting a lot of stick as well. Like, people are saying, oh, he's not playing the same, but it's because he's got to fucking play as 3 midfielders, because Hendo and Curtis Jones aren't doing the job that they should be doing and getting back. And I think we spoke about this in the group chat. Hendo just doesn't look the same at the minute. He just looks absolutely knackered and like he can't be asked to track back, and he hasn't got the energy in him. I don't know. I'll carry on my thoughts on it in a minute, boys. But what did you two think to that game?
I thought, honestly, lived up to the big ticket box office hype. Those are 2 Premier League juggernauts, 2 of the best clubs in the world at the moment, going at it and playing how they want to play, I think, also. And I was pretty impressed. Salah, I think, you gotta say, just what a talent currently. He's back to his levels of past seasons. He is as good as any player in the world. There's no question about that. That is one of the most impressive goals I've seen in a big match. That was brilliant. And City, they stick to their, they'll out attack with, their 5 attacking players and finish chances. And I think that's to see it to, I don't know, we were talking a bit last week. I just think the main way to beat City is just being a bit defensive, but Liverpool wanted to stick to how they play, which is sitting back defensive, and it's going to leak chances. But I do think both these teams showed that they've been given, and they're definitely going to both be competing for the title by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think like Josh is saying, these clearly are the 2 top dogs. I think especially in terms of how you can tell, like Guardiola, it seemed like he respected Liverpool a lot more than they did Chelsea. Chelsea, they're like, we're just going to go straight at you and press you for, however long until, we get a goal and, or you make a mistake that leads to one of our goals. Ultimately, they kind of sort of got lucky, but it seemed like, Guardiola was sort of more waiting for Klopp's boys to come out and be attacking, and then they weren't. And then, and at halftime, they kind of woke up, and Salah obviously inspired some, with his usual brilliance, which was just so fun. It's just so fun to watch him when he's on that form, just, as a neutral football fan. But yeah, I don't know. It was a good match. It's always fun to watch, Klopp versus Guardiola in a tactical battle. And I think they both made adjustments at halftime. You can clearly see, I guess, City are more likely to concede down their left side with Laporte and Cancelo. I don't think they're, nearly as good defensively as Diaz and Walker on the right, because Walker almost sits in like that third center back, sort of like how Tomiyasu is doing at Arsenal with Arteta's setup. And Cancelo obviously moves much farther up the pitch. So, both their goals were leaked down their left side with Salah coming off Liverpool's right. So Laporte's very good on the ball, but, I guess the jury's still out on if he can, be a great defensive center back. So maybe we see Stones move into the side or get a chance here in the coming few weeks after the international break. But I think, the next time they play, it's going to be another brilliant match. And it's just, I don't know what else to say. It's just so fun. Like you wish as a neutral football fan, they could play like at least every month, but we have to wait. Just, we're only guaranteed two matches a year. So.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with what you're saying about Guardiola set up as if he was kind of waiting for Liverpool to do what they normally do. But then I think after about the first 10 minutes or so, Liverpool didn't really do that. And then it allowed City to get into the game. And then obviously, there's the talk of if City had a striker like Harry Kane, maybe not this season's Harry Kane, but, previous Harry Kanes. If they had him up top, then, the game maybe could have been out of sight for Liverpool. They had a fair few chances. So whether or not they're going to look to bring in a striker in January, we don't know, because at the minute, as Josh said, Guardiola's enjoying having, 6 midfielders playing really. But I don't know, in the second half, again, it was just a much better game from my point of view. Obviously, been a Liverpool fan to see us getting at it, but just against Brentford as well, it showed like our defense and the support from the midfield just isn't what it's used to. Normally when you watch Liverpool in the past, Van Dijk is starting with Fabinho in front of him. You think, what, a team will be lucky to score one here, but we scored. Phil Foden obviously scored straight after, and then that moment from Mo Salah, like I said to Josh before we started recording, but before I even celebrated, I was stood there for a few seconds like, mate, what the fuck have I just witnessed? Is that really gone in? Like, I honestly couldn't believe it. And because obviously it dinked the post, from the angle where I was watching it, it was like, looked like it was going wide. And then when I just saw the ball in the white sheet of the net, I was like, how the fuck has he just done that? And like the angle I was on, mate, I could full on see Bernardo's face after he got mugged off and was sat down. And I was literally just in shock, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, the greatest thing to come out of that game for me is that everybody's starting to finally realize what I have fucking said for years, that Mo Salah is, in my opinion, the best player I've seen in a Liverpool shirt. Obviously, I can't talk about older generations because I wasn't, around to watch them. But for me, Mo Salah is the best player to wear a Liverpool shirt, and he's probably one of the best players in Premier League history. Like the numbers he gets, the form he's on this season, the goal he scored. It's a shame that it took that wonder goal to get people talking about him in the respect he deserves. But taking that into account and then picturing fucking Kevin De Bruyne and just making it 2-2, that just killed it for me again instantly. Like, I was so high. I was like, oh my God, he really is the king, to fucking that De Bruyne deflection. And I was just like, mate, De Bruyne scored. Everyone's going to be twerking for him again. He's not had that good of a game. Obviously, it was a deflection.
Well.
I think Alisson had it covered. And yeah, it was just disappointing. And I spoke to you about this as well, Joey. Van Dijk at the minute, he's not looking the same centre-back. Obviously, that you stopped Ivan Toney going through, but he seems arrogant almost. Like he seems like he knows he's the best centre-back in the world and he's just kind of in cruise control. And I don't know, I feel like there's some situations where maybe he could do something different, which will then help out Matip and the rest of the defence. I don't know what your boys' thoughts are on that, but I just feel like Liverpool's defensive midfield is, although we've got great attackers and we can definitely get goals, it's looking at the minute like defence might be a problem for us. Whether or not it's just, credit to City, they just played really well. And that's why. But then again, you look back at Brentford conceding 3. Is there an issue there, do you boys think? I certainly do.
Yeah, well, I think just from a Van Dijk's perspective, I'll let Josh touch on the rest of it. But just from Van Dijk perspective, it's hard to tell if it's, I guess, the case of, he doesn't fully trust his knee and his rehab, which I kind of doubt. I mean, you'd think he'd only be, he'd only start playing again if he was ready to play. So I guess it could be that, he just isn't back up to full speed, but I doubt. Or the latter, just like you're saying, something's like in his head about, he knows he's quality, he knows he's class, and he doesn't want to make a mistake, I guess, or he doesn't want to try too hard. He just wants to make everything look easy. But he had that incredible stat where he didn't get dribbled by for X and what is it, 300, attempts. But the reason was because, sometimes he just made it look easy, made great tackles or just took the ball off people because he's that good. But also sometimes he was sprinting back, and just running as fast as he can to stop a counterattack or whatever. So I don't know if he needs to just watch it, old video of himself and just realize, what he was doing differently. But, let's hope for Liverpool's sake that they're talking about it at least and letting him know, hey, maybe we need to look into this again, or, you can help Matip and Fabinho out more in the whole defense. So what do you think, Josh?
I mean, I think when you're going up against City, it's hard to be super critical of the defenders.
Yeah.
But it did feel like Liverpool can be a bit stronger and just try to insert themselves a little bit more in the game to slow City's chances. I didn't think they did a good enough job of possessing and trying to really limit City's chances. And when you give City that many chances, they're gonna be successful in some. And it's an unlucky goal, the second one off a deflection, whether City deserved it or not. The defenders were pretty much doing their job there to stop it. It just takes a nice nick off and into the back of the net. But yeah, I mean, you don't have Trent in, and I think that really hurts. And maybe Ronaldo was really critical, and they need to get that kind of midfield work engine to help Fabinho. But I still think the teams are going to be content. I won't say they're going to be super happy because I think they both know they're that good and that they want to win, especially Liverpool at home, especially City when they have that many chances. But I think they're going to be content with that point and keep moving on. And I really think that's a warning call for the rest of the Premier League to really, really step it up, that these teams are here and ready to compete.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the one part of it as well that disappoints me is, we've played City now at Anfield. We played Chelsea at Anfield. We've got a point from each game, but I feel like City and Chelsea will be happier about that they've come to Anfield and managed to get a point out of it. Because that means now we've still got to go to Stamford Bridge. We've still got to go to the Etihad, and, they're always difficult games for us. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like City may feel like they deserve the 3 points, but then, again, Liverpool may feel they deserve the 3 points. But like you say, I think both will be content with the 1 point. The only thing that annoys me about it is, the fact that we let a lead slip twice, and I feel bad for Marv doing so well. But then another point to that is, Milner, should he have been on the pitch? Personally, I actually think it was a second yellow. It was just so blatant the way he just left his leg out. Bernardo did fall a bit dramatic, mate, and nearly fucking broke his neck with how dramatic he fell. But yeah, I personally feel it was a second yellow. I know, Josh, I think you said you don't think it was.
Yeah, I obviously get it if that's given as a second yellow. It's definitely a little weird, like you're referring to the match, but it definitely would have dramatically changed the game. And I'm okay with that being like, that's your last warning. And let the two teams figure it out, because I don't think that who wins the match. But obviously if it was Spurs, I'd potentially be howling about it. But
I mean, he's had a couple nibbles in the first half, though.
Yeah,
like the penalty shout where, I didn't think it was a penalty. I thought they might have given a foul outside the box on Foden. Where he kind of started and sort of carried it. And Foden did go down soft, but there was a couple nibbles, so I was kind of surprised. But I do hear what you're saying, Josh. Like it's not the end of the world that it wasn't given as a red card. I mean, you can see why he didn't.
Yeah. They were saying that they think it was influenced by the crowd. Probably true, mate. Like for me, that atmosphere was amazing. It was absolutely electric at the match. But I don't know. I just I feel like Klopp himself knew, all right, Milner shouldn't be on the pitch, because as soon as that happened, Gomez.
Thought he might get Gomez on earlier though, just because Gomez. Foden was already pinning Milner back, and it seemed like he might just go with somebody who's probably a bit quicker and a bit more athletic and to deal with Foden. But also just quickly on the red card, I'm kind of surprised that I think I know Mike Dean is the fourth official, and he loves to be like center of attention, especially in bigger matches. So I was surprised that he didn't at least have a word in in Tierney's ear. I know Mike Dean would have he would have been licking his chops to give the red card.
Oh mate, of course he would. Of course he would.
Yeah, so it just goes to show refs do have a real significant impact on a lot of these matches, because you can see refs like Dean would have probably sent off Milner, but it was probably for the better of the neutral viewing and maybe both sides that he didn't get sent off. So.
Yeah, definitely. But we spoke about them two giants. I suppose we should also mention the team that are actually sat in top of the league at the minute. It's by a point. But yeah, they managed to beat Southampton 3-1. It was a 1-1 game until Ward-Prowse got the red card, and then City just kind of battered them then after that. Chelsea just battered them after that. But I think when it was 11v11, Southampton were very much in the game and, making Chelsea really work for it. Obviously, they had the disallowed goal as well. But I don't know. I think Chelsea just, although when Lukaku signed for them and whatnot, and I think I predicted them to come second and be one of the best teams this season, they're not really showing that much, are they? I don't know about you, but I'm hating the way Tuchel's setting them up at the minute with just fucking 8 defenders and then Werner and Lukaku up top.
Yeah, and it seems more significant than last year. Josh, go on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're getting the result, but I completely agree. Southampton were completely in the game in the second half. They got a nice penalty. I mean, it was just horrible defending from Chilwell. I'm not sure why he's getting a game if he's making a mistake like that. But Southampton looked like a decent side that they were going to get a result there, I thought, with 15 minutes to go. And then Ward-Prowse, just a little bit of rush of blood. And I do think it's a bit harsh of a red. I know that it doesn't look that great when you slow it down, but it wasn't that bad of a tackle. It wasn't in a dangerous part of the game. Jorginho is turned into a little roly-poly and folded his complete body and how he's falling. I don't even know. Honestly, that hurts.
Hate the man.
Players get I don't know. The ref gave a yellow instantly, and he saw it. I can't believe they really went to VAR to give it a red card. But Southampton didn't complain much. Ward-Prowse didn't complain much. but I do think, maybe that's one that you get away with slightly with just like a harsh yellow. And after that, Chelsea were a bit dominant, and it was a brilliant assist from Aspilicueta, a one-time cross. And looking at Timo Werner getting on the goal sheet, as I'm sure we all kind of suspected eventually, he's starting to really tick some boxes and dominate and get a starting spot on the Chelsea side, which is pretty impressive, I think. But yeah, I do have to say it's slightly concerning when they did let Southampton back into the match, but they clearly got the 3 points dominantly.
Yeah, Joey, your thoughts on that one then, mate?
Excuse me. Well, obviously, like Josh was saying, Chilwell did, I don't know what he was doing in the penalty, but I thought he was actually decent, especially going forward. And, just reading some stuff online, him as and Reece James, and obviously, actually, Aspilicueta has shown he can really have a pretty decent delivery, even from like that right center back position, but especially when he's at right wing back. But, they need crosses to feed Lukaku because they're not, as we've seen against City, and maybe against the worse off teams, they can play more through the middle, but they're kind of got to get that width that they get with those wing backs or wingers, whatever they are, like inside forwards almost, I guess, if it's Werner. But I thought Chilwell, I thought he was decent. I thought his delivery was good, and he was getting in some threatening positions. Obviously Reece James is good on that on the right, but I think you'll see more of Chilwell going forward because his crossing is, from what I've read, supposedly a lot better than Alonso's, and I think Tuchel distrusts him more, I guess. I don't know about defensively. I think Chilwell and Alonso both had their defensive liabilities, but Alonso he got hooked at halftime at Juventus, and he was on a yellow, but I think Tuchel just wasn't very happy with how he was playing anyways. So that's it. I guess I kind of like looking at those positional battles, and part of that comes from like my paying a lot of attention to fantasy Premier League and who's going to start, because it looks like either of those, Chilwell or Alonso, are going to get a lot of attacking returns just with how they feed Lukaku. But, another game where Lukaku hasn't scored. So, well, he does have a favorable fixture run coming up. And obviously I think they host Brentford, or they play Brentford next. So we'll see if he can bag it against them. Obviously it's not exactly easy, but yeah, I mean, Chelsea I think they'll be in and around the title. I don't think they're quite as good as City or Liverpool, but who knows if they get a little bit more attacking chemistry.
Did you not have one of you have Liverpool to finish fourth at the start of the season?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, which not quite as good.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I got Norwich and Brentford right. You boys shocking off Brentford, but.
Yeah.
Spurs are still going to get top four. Here we go.
We don't need to hear any of that.
Yeah, I don't know. To be fair, I tipped City to finish like third or fourth, and I thought Pep was a bit of a bum, but I don't know. They're looking good again now, and they're looking decent. And the way Pep speaks, I don't know if you boys think this, but the way Pep speaks about Liverpool, mate, you think he fucking supports them. He says nothing but praise about them, and that. I reckon after Klopp, he's going to be begging for the job the way he goes on about it. But yeah, Lukaku, as you said, mate, it's been 5 games now in all competitions that he's not scored. I think he scored in his debut and then scored again and whatnot. And then
2 against Villa, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think everyone was like, "Oh, here we go, Lukaku's back in the Prem and he's better than ever." But yeah, it shows that he can go missing, and he has been missing for a while now. He's not really even played that well. I know against Liverpool he didn't play well at all. He was a bit dog. Against City he was a bit dog. I didn't really see him fully against Juventus and whatnot. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he does, boys. We've got unfortunately the international break now. We come back and we're away against Watford. Obviously Ranieri will be in charge, and then Watford did actually ruin our invincible season. Ismail Assar had a masterclass against us last time we went and played them there. So be interested to see how we get on. Who do you two boys play next?
Spurs got Newcastle, pretty favorable a fixture away. Spurs have a little bit of an interesting run coming up. We have 4 straight away matches, 2 in the Prem, 1 in the Europa Conference League. What a tournament. the Carabao Cup. So it'll be an interesting run. We got United eventually coming up, Everton, but it'll be a tough little thing to navigate before all the fixtures just flood in the Premier League December. But I think we'll really get a good sense of how Spurs are going to be after these 4 away matches.
Definitely. And what about you, Joey? What about the Hammers?
We were away to Everton, EVERTON, the Toffees. So, that's not, especially if Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison are healthy again, that's going to pose a pretty big threat for us. And like I said, we need to figure out that midfield balance and chemistry. And, we're off to a really good start in the Europa League campaign. And obviously we want to give that our best because, I think we're good enough to make a fairly decent run. And if, we did somehow win it, obviously you're playing Champions League football. So, that would be, top class. And, we might also go away to Barcelona and smack them 5-0, Mikel Antonio hat trick, who knows, when they drop out of the Champions League. So, yeah, I would like to see us pick up a couple league points here because I don't know. It seems like there's been a little bit of a drought. I guess my expectations are probably higher than they should be, but Everton won't be easy. So,
yeah, just quickly before we wrap it up, boys, there is one team I've wanted to shout them out for the past couple episodes. You probably know who I'm going to say.
Oh yeah.
Mate, Brighton sat in 6th place on 14 points, joint with City, United, and Everton. They haven't scored many, they haven't conceded many, just the 8 goals and 5 conceded. But what was their issue last season was that they would play well, but they just wouldn't get a point out of it. They would either lose or, they'd get an unfortunate draw or, when a main example of that is the United game, that controversial handball thing that was after the final whistle blew, stuff like that. That was just, I think, a perfect example of Brighton that season. They played so well, but they just didn't get the result. But, Graham Potter's getting the results in this season. It's still only early doors, but 14 points to them from 7 games. They've been doing so well, and they do as well play good football. Obviously, their last game, I think, was it a 0-0 draw? 0-0 against Arsenal as well. So,
we're all over Arsenal as well.
Yeah, difficult game that as well, considering Arsenal have been on better form. So, yeah, Brighton, the fans for Brighton, mate, they must be delighted this season.
Yeah, one of our best mates, Bryce, we gotta give him a shout out because he's endured all those XG lost battles over the last couple of years, and I guess they won an XG, and they lost in the real match. But like you said, credit to Potter. If they had a bunch of chances against Arsenal, if they do that, they're joint top, obviously second on goal difference because Chelsea have a massive goal difference advantage on them. But they're playing very well, and they got that result against Palace in I think it's the M23 derby, is that what it's called? Even though they're not exactly next to each other, they're close enough. And so I think just like little points like that where you wouldn't think they'd get a result are like massive for like the confidence and just also like the fans' involvement and just them believing in the project. And yeah, I just see good things happening for Brighton this year, so they're fun to watch.
Yeah, the man Cucurella, he's been playing brilliantly for them. That's a quality signing for them. And they're, I think it was a tough match, horrible conditions, pouring rain. And I think that definitely contributed a bit to the 0-0. But yeah, it's all positive momentum with them. So I think that's a good sign. I actually just want to ask, we were talking a bit. I was thinking going into the international break, I think the England national team players, especially guys from the Euros, have been incredibly disappointing so far in the Prem this season. I don't know. What do you guys think about, I don't even know who the most impressive player, most consistent player would be of any of the Euro final squad.
I'd probably say, mate, just thinking off the top of my head, English players, obviously Harry Kane hasn't done anything. Sterling, Luke Shaw's not having a season like you thought he would. For me, probably the best one is probably Declan Rice. I'd say, he's been pretty solid for West Ham. He's scored a couple goals for us, I think, in the Europa. and whatnot. And, you know, he's been
played like
performing
every
well.
minute for us as well.
Yeah, and then I can't really think of anyone else. I'd maybe say Calvin Phillips when you look at how Leeds have done this season. Overall, they're having a pretty poor season. I'm trying to think in terms of goal scorers.
It's a great out from Josh, though. I mean, they clearly have had a hangover, and you know, Shaw hasn't been at his best. A lot of the guys haven't even played. I mean, Sterling hasn't seen that much time for City, and obviously it's so funny. You know, he plays such a big role for England, and he did play a huge role for City. I guess in the last 5 years, and in terms of goal contributions, has gone down over the last 2 years. Obviously, he was sky high in sort of 17 through 19. But it is funny, Josh. And do you think there's a reason for that, or?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I was gonna ask you guys that. I'm not sure. I think part of it might be like a bit like England, just like the system they play and like the style, like really is built for those players, so they look really good in it. I'm not saying I don't want to say they're bad players, but I think it really makes them look good. Like it's interesting, just like players, like can't get gaming time. I don't know. That's pretty shocking, I think. But probably a bit of a hangover from and just getting back up into form. And it's a little early on in the Premier League season. But I don't know. I think that kind of holds them a little bit back from being like absolute superstars. I mean, I know a lot of them are. I don't want to discredit them, but you do have to perform. I mean, like it's not like you're at the club level. You can just ghost and get your way in, because there's plenty of players lower in the England squad that will try to nick your spot.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Also, Saka has been decent. By the way, I mean, I know he wasn't I don't know if Saka was a starter for England, but he did play a fair amount of minutes for them throughout the competition, the tournament. So I think he's been pretty good at the last 3 or 4 matches. So I guess along with Rice and Phillips, like probably the ones who have continued their form at least.
Ben White as well, mate. He's done a decent job. A lot of pressure on him going to Arsenal. With the price tag that was on him as well for a centre back, that's always a hefty price. I think he's done well. Mason Mount, though, he obviously was injured for a couple of games, but he's not really done what you'd expect of him. But not the best. Yeah, I don't know, mate. That's a good question. I'm not too sure why that might be. Maybe after the international break and they get playing for England again, it might give them a bit of confidence, and some of them might impress and get back into the starting 11 for their teams, and we'll see how they do. But yeah, good question, mate. Anyway, boys, I think that's been a good episode. God knows how long it is. I don't actually know. I reckon probably about an hour mark. But yeah, decent on that, boys. It was a great Premier League weekend again. Some good matches. Disappointing results for me and Joey, as we said. But Josh back on the winning ways. Going into international break. So we will catch you all next time. And as always, boys, thanks for joining us. I'll quickly say this now. If you're watching it on YouTube and you made it this far, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hopefully, we can get off 2 subscribers and start boosting up a bit. Yeah, but if you're listening in audio or you're listening in video, guys, we appreciate it. And we will catch you on the next one, boys. Take it easy.
Yeah, catch you later. See you guys.